Hey everybody, I'm George Buman with the Yellowstone Life, and thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Wild Conversations, where the topic is camouflage. Do you see me? How about now? Do you see me now? Have you ever had that feeling that you just wanted to drop off the face of the earth, disappear to the world, and never be found? Well, some of that's scheduling, but in the other sense, wild animals do this all the time. It's not to avoid their earthly obligations, it's to work with them. Specifically, it's about avoiding becoming prey. It's about being able to sneak up on your prey if you're a predator. And so for this episode, we're going to talk a bit about what kind of camouflage is out there, how it's used by different species, and we're going to reproduce one of the centuries-old classic examples of the effectiveness of camouflage in its simplest form, and a form that's found throughout the entire animal kingdom. And so we're going to take this lead from a famous artist naturalist from the late 1800s and actually go through this experiment and show you how, in fact, even something like a potato can simply disappear before your eyes. We're going to talk about first some of the basic forms of camouflage. Camouflage comes in all sorts of shapes, sizes, patterns, colors, all the way from things like clear animals like the glass frogs and deep sea creatures that are virtually transparent, all the way up to things like tigers, zebras. They are showing all sorts of very innovative, creative ways to stay hidden, whether again that's to find food or to prevent becoming food or to avoid an encounter with say a competitor of the same species. So there are things like disruptive coloration. Think zebras, think tigers, where there's a pattern, a leopard, where they have very distinct patterns throughout their coat or their plumage, whatever the animal might be, that breaks up their form, breaks up their shape and their color. So as you look at a zebra, as you look at a leopard, you don't always know exactly what part of the animal is what and how to disentangle that from your environment. So that's one form. Another form is mimicry. It should just simply look like your background. A lot of creatures, look at these butterflies. A lot of butterflies that we have here in the Yellowstone ecosystem, that you have home in your ecosystems, in your neighborhoods, in your town and city parks, they have the most incredible mimicry of their environment. So they might have these gorgeous, beautiful, and sometimes even metallic, iridescent colors on top, but when they fold those wings up like a book, they virtually disappear. The mourning cloak, great example. This very deep, dark, burgundy-colored butterfly flying around through the forest, but when it lands and it folds up, it might as well be a piece of bark. We have other species like commas and tortoiseshells that follow this very same suit. And in our environment, one of the hardest butterflies to see out in open country is the riding satyr. The riding satyr, when it lands and folds up its wings on the patch of dirt that they typically land on, they disappear. They are gone. They're invisible. So how do you find them? How do you spot animals like this? In that case, when we're doing the butterfly census, we actually have to walk in a line, a drive line, and flush them in order to find them because it's just so difficult to spot them, unlike this black dog, not camouflaged. And the most common form of camouflage, whether you realize it or not, is a simple thing referred to as countershading. Countershading is simply the effect of being darker on top and lighter on the bottom. Now that doesn't really seem much like camouflage, does it? I'm going to take the pronghorn, for example. Very tan, sienna colored on top, very much white, bright white in some cases, on the bottom. How does that help it hide? Well, hopefully after this experiment, you're going to see exactly why so many animals, whether it's fish, birds, insects, mammals, reptiles, are darker on top, lighter on the bottom. This countershading camouflage is perhaps the most common and incredibly effective at letting an animal virtually disappear. Now, the idea of camouflage, especially in its terms of being used in military engagements and for hunters, really didn't start to take hold until the early 1900s, and largely at the instigation of a particular artist, naturalist by the name of Abbott Thayer. Abbott was an ardent student of the arts. He went through the Beaux-Arts education in Paris. He was widely regarded as one of the premier painters of his day, portrait painting, but one of his passions, his side passions, was the study of nature. Through his art training, he could take a flat surface and make it look three-dimensional, like this figure was coming right out of the canvas. But what he also learned from and incorporated into his work and studies was how nature could take a three-dimensional animal and make it look flat, or better yet, just disappear. And so through his studies, he figured out all sorts of amazing things that were ultimately used by the US military, the British, even German military during World War I. And these came from lessons in nature, the very same lessons you can observe all around you here in my background and in your own yard. And in essence, what Abbott did is, and this is a famous experiment or demonstration, I should say, that he conducted at an ornithology meeting, bird enthusiasts and researchers. And what he did was he took a potato, actually 3 of them, and he went outside with the group and he strung these potatoes on a wire. And what he did was had everyone return to where they had started and turn around and look, and sure enough, there were 3 potatoes on a wire. Abbott, what's the big deal? Well, what he then did was go over to the potatoes. He'd covered the top half of them with a sticky substance that allowed him to put some of the soil and the ground material from the surrounding driveway, it was literally over a driveway, onto the top of the potato, and then he painted the bottom half pure white. And then with some of that dirt that he'd picked up off the driveway, he did a little bit of a gradation, a mixing from the white to the brown. That was it. He put that on 2 of the 3 potatoes, had everyone turn around, walk back, and what did they see? 1 potato on the wire. How is that possible? The group was incensed. They couldn't believe that simple act made these 3-dimensional objects just disappear against their background. And so at their behest, he went back over to the potatoes, painted the 3rd one as he'd done the first 2, and went back, and lo and behold, it too seemed to disappear. Now this is fascinating because it really works on the simplest effect of light. So as you're looking at me, the light is coming down on top of my head, and it's lightening all the surfaces here. It's taking the dark color of my hair and making it appear lighter. Similarly, the opposite is going on the bottom. The shadowed areas of that potato or that bird or that snake are on the bottom portion of the form. It's in shadow. And so as a result, the light is darkened and the dark is lightened. And in essence, what this does is it creates the illusion of a uniform, flat, 2-dimensional shape, not a 3-dimensional form. And if you've ever seen photographs of tuna, that happy fishermen are holding up, what color are they? They're this beautiful blue-black on top, and it grades down to this silvery white on the belly, like so many other species of fish. You put those same fish back in the water, or take a photo before they were caught, and what you see underwater is this uniform, flat, silhouette-like shape. When against the different backgrounds, or think about looking up at this fish, that light belly, there's even species of deep sea fish that have illuminated tissues in their body that reflect or match the coloration of the light filtering down through the water. Similarly, if you were standing above as an osprey might or an eagle and looking into the water, that fish being dark on the back is going to blend in against the dark color of that water. So this very simple thing that is employed by so many species of animals is just the ticket to disappear against your surroundings, to slip out of view for the animal you're trying to sneak up on, or to not become prey. So look around your area. You're going to see this everywhere. And let us know what you find. Where do you see it? What species of reptiles, amphibians are you spotting this on? Take some photos for us and share it, because this is one of the most amazing and simple aspects of the natural world that's simply working off the physics of light. Thanks for joining me. I'm George Buman with the Yellowstone Life. Join us same time, same channel next week for another wild conversation at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And until then, I really hope you see some great wildness in your own backyard, and by